Back in the garage today. Back in the garage today. What's going on, guys? Back in the garage today, where I'm going to show you how to make your own fuel pump tester for your KTM dirt bike or adventure bike. So a few things you're going to need to do this. One, you are going to need a fuel pressure gauge. I picked this one up from Harbor Freight. It's a Maddox. It was about $25. It actually came with this hose attached to it. I've gone ahead and taken that off. Stopped by the hardware store because I'm using a 5/16 inch barb on here with a 1/4 inch. So what I did is I picked up an adapter specifically for this one. It might be a little bit different if you don't go with this exact model. I needed a 1/4 inch MIP to 1/8 inch FIP adapter on here. It does have a little bit of thread tape. And then I also, like I said, I have the barb on here. You're also going to need a T-barb. Also 5/16. Next thing you're going to need is this quick adapter. This is going to plug right into your factory fuel line, so that's going to make it nice and clean. You are going to need some clamps, some hose clamps. I'm using these single ear. If you want to use the old school ones that you use the screwdriver or little socket to tighten them down, you can do that. Some thread tape's a good idea. If you're using these single ear hose clamps, you're going to need I don't know what you want to call these, one of these sets of pliers specifically to use with these. And you're also going to need something to cut your hose. And that's the last thing you're going to need. You're going to need some 5/16 inch hose in order to make this thing work. So you can set, this is a 2-foot piece. We'll get a measurement if you want to keep things as nice as possible and keep everything equal length. Get yourself a tape out too. But we're going to get to working on this and getting this thing put together, and then I'll show you how it works. Now, since this is already cut to 2 feet, I'm just going to leave this as my long length that's going to go from the face of the gauge there down to the barb, or the T-handle barb here. We're not going to put these things in yet. What we do need to do is get our hose clamps ready and make sure we pick out the right size here and go ahead and slide those onto our hose. All right, so with those slid onto our hose, we're going to come up here and just slide this over the barb. Get our hose clamp in place. And we're going to use our pliers and just go ahead and clamp this down. And the main reason I'm using this method instead of the spin-on, it looks cleaner. That's it, just looks cleaner. All right, so with the one on this end, we're gonna take our T, go ahead and get that in there, and we're gonna clamp this one down. Looks good. So now we've got a 2-foot piece of hose here with our T coming out on this end and also attached to our dial gauge here. Now we're going to get a measurement on this and see what's going to work. All right, so off camera I took a look, and I think, I went over and looked at the bike where it's going to be plugging in. I think 6 inches is probably going to be good here. So I'm just going to go ahead and measure off another piece here. It doesn't have to be perfect. There we go. Now we have both of our pieces for the other end, or for the T here. Now, what I would suggest doing before you clamp all this stuff down, go ahead and do a test fit. And what I mean by that is, I'm going to take it over to my bike, line this up, and just make sure I'm not going to have any weird kinks or anything like that. It's not too long, it's not too short when it comes to plugging it into the quick connectors, so we can actually test the fuel pump. Okay, so it looks like that's going to work pretty well. So now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go ahead. We've got it pressed onto the barbs here. We're going to get our hoses clamped. That one. Now, when it comes to your quick connect, this would be my recommendation for how you're going to do it. So the way it's set up on the dirt bike, in fact, let me just go over and show you, because I kind of want these so the gauge is facing me. I don't have stuff twisted up, and I've got it. I'm going to end up on the right hand side. I'm going to place this one in with the button on it, and I'm just going to use or if you want to call it the female end, and then I'm going to use the male end on the left side. Let me show you why. Hopefully you guys can see well enough here. So the way I'm going to plug this thing in is I'm going to take the T and it's going to sit in here, and then I want to be able to read the pressure gauge. So over here is the quick connect. So that's why we're going to put the male end on this side, because it's going to go into the quick connect with the button. And then I'm going to put the female end on this side because the fuel line going in to the engine is male, so you need the female adapter there. That's the only reason why we're doing it. It's long enough that it really shouldn't matter. You should be able to twist it around, but just to make things as easy as possible, we're going to do it that way. All right, so we're going to put our male end on this side. Go ahead and clamp this down. Throw our female end on this side, and just to make it a little easy, I kind of want the button pointed up. That way I don't have things twisted up when I actually go to work on this thing. We'll clamp it down. Done. We now have our very own fuel pressure gauge or tester, whatever you want to call it, specific to KTM motorcycles. Let me show you how this thing works, and then we'll wrap up. All right, so we're going to test this out on my Husky 350. Again, it's the same connectors and everything as an adventure bike. Also, the newer bikes in the garage, the Noah's 250 and my 350, gas, a little bit harder to see. So all we're going to do here is press in. We're going to disconnect the fuel line. You are going to get, just be aware, you're going to get a little bit of fuel on your hands. Now we're going to take our male end, plug it into the female end, and now we're just going to do the opposite over on this side. All right, now we've got everything connected. Let's get up here, let's start the bike up, take a look at the fuel pressure gauge. All right guys, so with our fuel pressure gauge hooked up, you don't need to take your seat off. I just need to take my seat off because I plugged the battery into the charger because it's a little low. All we're going to do is start this thing up. We're hoping, you know, as far as I know, the pump's good on this thing, and if it is good, it ought to be right around 50 PSI for this bike. Be sure to check your service manual for your specific application. Just be aware, it may take a second to prime because obviously we don't have fuel through the new line there yet. I don't know if you guys can hear me, but this fuel pump is good. It's sitting right on 50 PSI. We're all good to go on this. All right, that's good news because I'm getting ready to sell this 350. I just want to make sure everything's in good operating order. I am going to go over some other stuff on this bike, but this was a great test of our fuel pressure gauge. You can see how well it works. One thing, there is some pressure in the line, so let this sit for a couple minutes before you unhook your quick disconnects down here. But yeah, there you go. That's how you make one of these things. So anyway, guys, that is how you make your own fuel pressure gauge, though I guess I would call it fuel pressure tester. Specific to these Austrian bikes. It'll work on the dirt bikes, it'll work on the adventure bikes. My assumption is it'll work on their regular street bikes too. So for about 50 bucks, it'll let you run diagnostics on your fuel pump in case you're wondering, hey, you know, if you're trying to figure out what an issue is with your bike, that is one way you can eliminate the fuel pump, knowing it's not an issue, or being able to diagnose it and go, it is an issue. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider that subscribe button, because if you like motorcycles, this is the place to be. If you have any questions about anything, let me know down in the comment section below. I'll do my best to answer them. I will also have all of the parts and pieces I use to make this listed down there. And as always, I'll talk to you again soon.